Good morning, everybody. August 8th, 2024, regular board meeting, Magna Water District, 8885 West, 3500 South, General Office Building. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Will everybody join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we get started, off to our right of our diocese table, we have Trevor Andre is our district engineer. Dallas Henline is our wastewater manager. And Matt Skogabo is filling in today for Raymond Mondragon as our water manager. And Andrew Sumption is our HR. Jeff White, trustee. Mick Sudbury, trustee. Danny Stewart, trustee. Leals Fitzgerald is our controller. Nathan Bracken is our legal counsel. And today helping us with this meeting is Clint Dilly, our general manager. So I'd like to welcome public and guest. Does anybody here would like to address the board today? I see none. And no one here has a conflict on the agenda with what we're going to be talking about today. So if none, let's move on to item F, minutes of the regular board meeting held July 24th.
Minutes of the regular board meeting held July 11th, 2024. Expenses for July 1st to July 28, 2024. General expenses $576,379.67. Signs bank payment $83,492.50.
I'll second it.
Been motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's move on to our department report. Clint?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. We got your GM report and the written report in your packet. I'll just highlight a few items unless the board has anything specific they wanted to address. I'm pleased to report that we're fully staffed. I think we were able to say that last month, but we're continued to be at full staff, which is nice for everybody. 35 employees right now, so I think we're in a good position for the foreseeable future with staffing. The only comment I'll make, which Dallas, in meeting with his team, you know, there's always that chance that ET Technologies that takes our solids from the wastewater plant could move. And I know that they are in discussions ongoing about the potential for moving their site. And if that were to happen, that could trigger some need down at the wastewater plant for additional drivers, right? Probably one. It might even push it to a full-time driver position.
It could be.
It could be.
So have they said where they're thinking of maybe moving to?
They haven't, they speculated there's a piece of property north of I-80, but they haven't landed on anything.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So we'll continue to monitor that. I think they've got a good pulse on that down at the wastewater plant. So there shouldn't be any surprises. We should know plenty ahead of time to budget and get some planning in place, but wanted to give the board a heads up on that. As far as water operations, wanted to report back on our secondary water meter installation program. It's part of the grant.
Yeah.
There were just over 400 people who had a lateral but didn't have a meter set.
So
So
they weren't hooked
you
up.
asked
Yeah.
last time. We wanted to report back on that. We have sent out the letters. We've been starting to install meters. We've had positive feedback. We've had negative feedback. I think we just wanted to confirm with the board, we've been given direction that mandatory, you don't want anything mandatory for the
I don't.
residents. And just wanted to confirm that.
How many negative to how many positive?
We probably don't have quite that
So
information yet.
what's the negative feedback like?
So it's been, I've talked to personally. One of the guys had it in the past when it first started. It was available in his subdivision. He struggled with it plugging his heads.
Was that up here, Dale?
Because he didn't put in a filter as we,
I don't know if he did or not.
I've got a few people that didn't put filters in, and they complain every time, and I said, but we recommended that you put it in.
Yeah,
But I told them, next year we'll be on reuse water, so
right.
it's gonna be a big difference.
I did tell him that, hey, the benefit is that we're paying for the cost with the grant money. We're basically covering the cost of the meter at no cost to you.
Yeah,
It does, the other feedback that's been negative has been, hey, well, it's still gonna be expensive for me to install the meter, or the tie into my irrigation piping. A couple of the subdivisions, well, at least one subdivision we know, had several customers that you would have to cross their concrete driveway, which makes that very challenging. And there's no sleeve that we know of to be able to run irrigation piping
but
across.
there's guys can do that with the water hose now, that they can,
I
they
think
can
it,
go in there without causing any problem with that. I mean, very inexpensively, if we get a good sprinkler guy, he can.
Jet
he
it?
can hook, yeah, he can hook just a standard water hose on and jet across there.
I think that's something that if it's okay with the board, what we'll do is we'll compile all of the reasons. We're tracking all of the reasons.
Okay.
Fantastic.
We'll bring that data back once we make this first pass. Because there's gonna be some limitations on the grant money. There is a potential, if we can't get enough customers to do it, that we might have to forfeit some of the grant money.
Okay.
So what we were
We
thinking
need to
is,
go out and campaign a little bit, right?
that's what we were thinking is maybe for something like that, we might propose, hey, we'll come pay to get it across. There could be one time, the board might think, hey, for one time measure, it's worth spending some extra of this grant money
Yeah.
towards solving some of those type of issues.
But we also need to tell them that it's a one-time thing.
Yeah,
That's the big deal.
yeah.
So, but that grant money won't pay to have it hooked up. I mean, they'll have to figure out.
We would have to amend the grant.
So the grant does cover some of that construction, but the way we wrote it was strictly for the meters. So we'd have to work with them to amend our proposal and cost estimate.
So Bart,
To see if they would cover that.
at Jordan Valley Water, when you were the general manager there, how did you guys contract out to have them hook up for the secondary? Or did you guys do that yourselves?
So within the Jordan Valley service area, and the retail service area, we didn't have a lot of secondary meters. It was
Okay.
all drinking water
Okay.
meters.
Okay,
And so we didn't have to deal with that, that kind of effort.
okay. I was just curious about that, because that's where, we're gonna kind of maybe,
So the mandatory part also came up. Some customers felt like if they said no to the meter, they shouldn't have to pay for the minimum monthly that comes with that. And we just wanted to confirm with the board that in those cases, we would not charge the minimum monthly because that might come across as mandatory. Is that the board's feeling?
okay, let me ask legal counsel, what do you think about that?
Let me make sure I understand this.
So what we're saying is, hey, we've got this grant money. We're gonna set a meter. If you say no to the meter, we're still planning on charging you for the minimum monthly because you have access to secondary water.
It's a standby fee.
It's basically, we've given you access to it. Some people would view that as mandatory, I think. They don't have to use it, they don't have to connect, but if you're getting charged for something.
How
there
much
may
is
be a
it
feeling.
about?
It's
Is it-
$450 a month.
That's what I thought, yeah.
$4.50. Is that in our fee schedule?
Yeah.
Is that,
Yeah, as long as it's in our fee schedule. I mean, that's just basically a standby fee. I mean, because the reality is we have to maintain that infrastructure. 'Cause
Yeah,
if
as soon
anyone
as
comes in there
as
and they
soon as
want
a
to
meter
connect to it.
gets put in, now there's an argument if they don't get a meter set.
they still gonna have to pay the 450, right?
It's a little bit harder of an argument to say they need to pay
Right.
450.
Yeah. Well, it seems most like a standby fee. I mean, the reality is the district's incurring costs maintaining that infrastructure. And whether someone wants to connect to it or not, maybe the next owner does. And if they want to come in and connect to it, we have to provide that service to them regardless of whether the current owner wants to do it. So it seems more like a standby fee to me. I'd want to take another look at our policy.
I will say, if you remember, we had quite a negative response to the subsidy.
Really bad.
And there's been a couple people that mentioned this feels like that subsidy. So
Remember that.
that was removed after quite a bit of negative feedback from the public on that.
Well, I think a lot of the feedback was too, is a lot of people, again, with the filter situation, their filters were getting plugged. It was a lot of work to go in there and clean the screen and do whatever. And again, according to Jeff, a lot of them didn't put screens in, so their sprinkling system was always plugging. And as down at the Copper Park, we had that issue too down there.
Yeah.
But that's got cleared up and the park looks great down there.
My recommendation to the board is we don't charge for the
Okay,
monthly minimum at this point
okay, I'm okay with that.
until we get a water quality that we can be confident in, and there's not that excuse anymore.
Can we extend this until next year when we're on the cleaner water?
I think that's something we would have to ask.
I mean, they're asking us for invoices. I mean, they really want this money spent so that they can.
So when does that have to be spent? All this year?
I don't know if there's a deadline. I'm gonna look into.
Okay, why don't we check into the deadline and,
Yeah.
If their money is spent towards the meters and we're just putting our in-kind labor,
Yeah.
I think that could be an argument. Hey, we're spending your money. It might take us a little while to catch up on the in-kind.
Yeah, there are requirements.
but can we use that money to install the meter and all the stuff they need to get hooked into it? Can we use that grant money for that?
I think that's the
You
question.
mean the customer side?
Yeah,
Just a stub out for them.
Yeah, I think we can talk with them and amend. We'd have to change our cost estimate because
Okay.
it would include that work and some of those.
I think we would, if we had gave them a heads up, but we came back with justification that here's the data. We went through a first pass, we got everybody that we could. Here's the challenges on this second pass through. Will you support us in going further? Because otherwise we're not gonna be able to connect as many as we thought, and we might have to forfeit.
I just don't want to get where we feel like we're pressuring people and force them into something that, as myself, don't want to do, or, I mean, we don't ever want to be forced
Well, if
into
we
anything.
make it as easy, if you guys can rewrite that and we can help them.
Okay, we'll pursue that.
Okay, that'd be great, okay?
And we'll just hold off on any.
So those that do not get a meter will not pay the fee.
Right.
Those that do will.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. I'll also point out that we're working on locating a buried valve on 84 and 4100 South. We've tried to uncover it, but it is closed. We think it's closed right now, and it creates a problem with our availability of the water flowing from both directions.
Oh, wow.
So it's really limiting us. And we've got the Mahogany Ridge development that will have to have a tie-in. And without
Do we not
without
know where-
finding this, we wouldn't be able to
Isolate.
and we'd have to shut down the whole zone,
Oh, wow.
all of zone 3.
So how do we go about finding that? I mean,
So we're in negotiations with,
UDOT,
Nolan and Sons to get a cost and that we'll bring back. It's a really deep line. We found some plans that show the east-west along 41 and it shows the north-south there as well. It's about 10 feet deep just
oh,
from
wow.
the changes in that road grade and stuff over time.
Wow.
So it's a pretty big endeavor. So we're Nolan and Sons has been really, really great.
Our crews have been unable to locate it so far, with
You
just
gotta get your-
potholing.
You gotta get your witching rods out there so you can.
Yeah, I think we have a good placement on where the lines are. It's chasing it to find that valve.
Yeah.
Wow, that could be,
Cause it is not on the tee, it's somewhere.
cause that right there where you're showing it at,
This isn't where it is, it's a depiction of where it could
Okay.
be. We know a valve's there, it's not surveyed, it's somewhere in this area.
okay.
Can we radar it or anything where?
We did a radar and it did identify something down there, but it wasn't as conclusive as you would hope. So we've got a lot of information to let us know that yes, this is a good plan. It's just now working on what that cost would be and getting approval.
Okay, cause our Magna City manager's with us today. David, isn't it right there on the corner? Isn't that where they wanna put that new Maverick?
It is.
Right?
That's, yes.
Yeah, okay.
84 and 41.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that tying in, mahogany, this whole thing is, it's really important to find this
Oh,
valve and make sure it
absolutely.
functions.
If we had to add a valve, that would be like an 8-hour
Yeah,
major shutdown.
that's one of the things we're worried about, is that valve is stuck shut. We may be able to change the gearbox, it's a butterfly valve. We may have to replace the valve. So,
Okay,
Yeah,
Wanted to make the board aware of that.
Okay.
That's pretty major for us.
that's a pretty busy area in that area right there too.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know of a system they make that you could dig down and freeze both sides so you could install a valve. That's a hell of a, that's like an 8-inch line, isn't it?
14.
Oh, my heavens. I don't know if they make one that big.
Anything else on that?
Nope.
Okay. I'll also mention, our first round of EDR stack replacements will be arriving in September, it sounds like,
Estimated 1st of September.
Estimated.
It is, so.
which, we've been pleased to get 20 years, basically close to 20 years life.
Wow.
Not 20 years.
15?
Yeah, we're at
15,
16.
16, somewhere in there.
Um, But these are more efficient membranes. They're a newer model.
Yeah.
I think Matt has a good plan in place that he's talked about as far as what we do with the existing.
So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna take down one train and do the first stage on that train. And then as we have problems arise on the other ones, these ones we've taken out, the older ones, we'll be able to drop that whole stack into somewhere so we're not replacing membranes or electrodes in a stack that we're gonna be changing out next year, in future years, so.
How long does it take to change a stack out?
I think we can change one out in a day,
Oh.
each one.
Okay.
We're gonna do a little bit of replumbing because they are about 2 or 3 inches shorter. So on just 2-inch PVC is all we gotta do. Basically is just 45 it and drop them in, and that's all they do is just bolt to the floor. So
Oh,
basically drain them. We got the cranes down there, we'll be able to lift it out of the way and hopefully drop the new one, if it all goes right. I mean, we've done it, because we do have some Suez, about 5-6 years ago, they gave us some of these stacks when they were coming out to try. So we have, on one of our trains, we have a first and a second stage on one. And we changed out that first and second stage on that one line in a day and a half. So with 3 of us, so.
So they go offline anyway, so you're not really hurt,
Yeah,
as long as you stay in a certain time
yeah,
frame.
we're gonna stay right there and just do one whole complete unit train. So the first stages all be brand new, and that sees the brunt of your contaminants that we're pulling out. It's pulling out basically 50% of your water, of the contaminants in that first stage, and that goes to the second stage, and that pulls out 50% of that last 50. So we're like 75% removal.
Wow,
So.
that's good.
So the second stage runs at a lower amperage and everything else. They don't wear out quite as fast as what we.
That's good. It's gonna be really good.
I will say, I think that from the original estimates, I think the life they thought we would get would be 10 years at
Yeah,
the most.
they expect about 10 years. And
We're at
and they come
16.
out when Veolia comes out. We've actually done like membrane analysis, taken them down, pulled out membranes, and they send them to their lab, and they can see how fast they're wearing out. And they're still holding in there, but you're past their estimated lifespan, so they're highly recommending us change them out.
Somebody asked me a question, I couldn't answer it. They said, as we draw off the well field, are perchlorates coming more, or is it staying about the same?
It stayed pretty consistent. I mean, that Barton 5 that we have the highest one in, I mean, you can go back over 5-10 years and it's stayed right close.
Oh, good, okay.
I think the
That's the
biggest,
whole purpose of keeping it running there, that Barton 5, is to keep the plume from spreading to the other wells. We run that basically 24/7, year round. Just,
Well, I said the
Keep that
fact they weren't putting more in kind of helps, right?
yeah, they've done a good job of managing that, so it doesn't get a wider reach. So. On the wastewater, just wanted to highlight Dallas's team continues to be successful with their biomonitoring. That's when you take the live fish and put it in the wastewater to make sure, the treated effluent, to make sure that they live and they're not getting killed off. They've done a great job. Haven't had any problems with that since you started at the wastewater plant, and I know at times we've struggled with ammonia, but they've done a great job down there on that, and wanted to highlight that to the board. Dallas will be talking about some modification on the collection system for some rehab projects. He'd like to change the scope for Twin D. He'll be talking about that here following up in the next section. Those large open screw pit pumps have been delivered. They look like a big screw. They're just like their name, but they're huge. How long are they? 30, 40 feet long?
About 35 feet, probably 30-inch diameter.
Big units that they're storing for the influent lift station project. So we're excited to see those arrive so we can get prepared for that. In the office, we're excited to have Yapify here to give the board a presentation on their services, what they offer. We think it's a potential to save the district time and money and improve our communications with our customer. But it's informational only today. We didn't have any decision on there. We just wanted to get the board's feedback on that so we can move forward. The phone system, we'll be swapping out here in the next couple weeks.
We're starting with
finalize
this Friday.
that. We'll be pleased to. Kim has been having to take calls that we can all hear. She
It
can't,
only comes through a speaker. It's crazy.
for some reason, they're going through her speaker and her headset.
Oh, wow.
So we'll be glad to get rid of that distraction. I think that's all for my report. I'll plan on coming to the city council at the end of August, your
Okay.
meeting. Maybe ask them if we could give that presentation that we did to the ACCT, or something modified.
Okay.
If they'd be interested in that, with any input from the board.
Okay,
That's my report.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Trevor, let's have your engineering report.
Okay. Our water line project, 8850, is essentially completed. They've paved that, it went well, all services are done, tied over. 9000 West, they've completed the piping, they're about halfway through with all of the services. We've had some tricky ones, like the Lady of the Lord's Church. Their meter was inside the building.
Oh, was it?
So we made, we got a meter out there, that'll help with accounting,
Definitely.
billing, so that's moving smoothly. For the reuse project, just chugging along, everything's on schedule, and I wanted to just show a couple pictures, cause, a little bit of an update. They've got the roof all complete, all the equipment, the cap, looks really slick. Got the stairwell on the side there. Got our signage up on there, looks really nice, pops.
Is that an exterior stairway that allows you to go up on the roof without going in the building?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, it's really.
A lot more
convenient and
comfortable to
nice.
go up and carry equipment or
Yeah, yeah,
than to crawl up a ladder.
yeah. Just another exterior shot from the front there. So this is moving along really great. I think we maybe have one more of the roof. That was just a quick.
This
zoom.
project went pretty smooth, didn't it?
It did. Really smooth. It did. Corio has done a good job. Bowman Collins has done great. Stantec as well. We had our kickoff meeting for our influent pump station. Corio, contractor on that. Like Clint mentioned, screw pumps are delivered. The grit washing equipment will come later in the year. And we're excited to get that one going. There's still some kind of initial paperwork and things before groundbreaking. Could be in September, later September, so.
Are we gonna do like an open house or on this reuse, okay?
I think we'll have to figure out if we want that as a early winter thing
Or wait till spring?
thing.
Cause we're gonna fire it up in the spring, right? I mean, it's supposed to really come online, is it?
This fall?
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll be testing it and running it in the fall, but
okay.
yeah, springtime might be the best.
Just don't do it in this heat.
Yeah. That was, kind of all I wanted to cover. Lobby office, you've seen, they've switched the door handles.
Oh, did they get the door handles changed out?
They got them swapped over. So
Okay.
it's same as this door behind.
Okay, and then we're just waiting for the glass to be
Frosted
changed?
will come in,
Okay.
and then
And have we decided on any type of table, chairs?
got some things to look at.
Okay.
That's all, unless you have other questions.
Nope, appreciate that. Okay, Matt, I'm gonna turn it over to you for your wastewater report.
Water side. So
Not wastewater, I'm sorry, your water
we'll do the water side. So for the month of July, we produced 250 million gallons, which equates to like 767 acre feet, which is about 2% decrease from last year. But year to date, we're at 994 million gallons, which is just over 3,000 acre feet, which is a 7% increase from last year. So monthly we're down, but over the year we've actually increased on the culinary side. As far as the secondary, in the month of July, we had just over 100 million gallons, which is 309 acre feet, which is a 28% increase from last year in July. And year to date is 243 million gallons, which is 748 acre feet, which is a 35.5 increase for the year. So people are using more of the secondary, it seems to, and people get it. And as far as a call out report, for the month of July, total number of call outs was 26, which we had 19 on the water and 7 on the wastewater, for a total hours of 102.5 hours. Water was 60, wastewater was 42.5. Mainline leaks, we had 0, 4 service line leaks, and then 28 miscellaneous call-outs.
So a question on, and Dallas probably can answer it, on our call out for wastewater, was it just because of our computer?
I'm starting to think there's a typo on this because I'm only seeing 3 hours wastewater treatment plant call-outs.
I don't know if that's on the, we got the call-out log. Let me see if I can see.
I just see the one, Scott Beck had a water pressure supply line issue.
Okay. Cause I thought that's quite a bit for,
Yeah, it looks like the total hours at the bottom section there
it's 52.
from last month. So total callouts are 20. There were 19 water and
3 hours for wastewater.
okay, wait a minute, sorry. Total callouts is 20. Total EDR water was
Well, there was two
hours,
wastewater
91 and a half.
callouts.
Right.
Total number of water was 19. Wastewater was 1.
Okay, wastewater.
Okay, there's the
Still
20.
had 7.
Okay,
Typo,
Gotta be a typo.
typo.
Yeah, and then there were 1, 2, 3 main lines actually, and 1, 2, 3, 4 service lines. And you can see those on the actual call out detailed page.
So the summary didn't get, you missed that on the summary.
okay.
Maybe I didn't hit the save button.
Okay, you guys-
Any other questions on that?
No.
Callouts? The only other thing we had is where we had the culinary off this hydrant hooked up to that drum screen to keep it clean for the secondary water. We actually got the new pump in yesterday and it seems to be running good so far. So
Awesome.
We'll keep an eye on it, make sure it ain't plugging up on the front side. 'Cause that's where we had the fire hydrant blowing on the front side of the drum to clean it off. So,
Do they make a better unit that you can do that? Well, I guess we don't worry about it, cause we'll be on
I think
clean
they've
water.
talked about actually replumbing it, so we actually got sprinklers on the front and the back. So what all we're doing now is spraying off the backside as it's coming around, it's blowing off, and we're getting buildup
Oh, wow.
on in between the drum screen, and there's a deflector plate right there, and we're getting grasses and twigs. The canal was so dirty there for a while, and it was building up, and it was binding to where the drum screen was, the belts are still running, but the drum screen was pinched, so it couldn't spin no more.
Wow.
So that's, we had to keep that hydrant blowing on there, just to keep all the grasses out, and then it'd keep it clean, and that was our biggest obstacle, I guess, with it, so.
Can they go back to the canal company and tell them to go through there and we're finding people are dumping their grass clippings in
Yeah.
there.
I think they need to do something.
Yeah.
We could definitely go to one of their meetings and suggest some maintenance or some monitoring.
The ba-
To go through and see, yeah.
The bad thing about that though is they're doing it probably at nighttime. So, I mean, catching them is gonna be slim
Yeah.
to none.
Hopefully it's less of a problem next year. with
Yes.
Reuse and everything else, so we're not having to rely on the canal as much anyway, so.
Great.
So how much do you figure we're drawing out of the canal? In our percentages of secondary water? I think it's 60%.
Majority, isn't it?
Yeah, I do my glasses here. Yeah, so basically, we pulled out in July, 184 acre feet we pulled out of the canal.
Out of 309?
Well, yeah, we've talked about, because
High and low, so you're,
the high and low, which might be double, we went through this with Leal from
I-
Can of Worms here.
I think that it's I think you're safe to say it's the majority of it, because the irrigation wells, as you can see, they're only putting out 36 acre feet,
Total 40.
4.5, yeah. So it's a lot smaller, and that's typical. I mean, I think last we looked, it was targeting 85% of.
You'd have to get a guy in a boat, he'd have to drive up there and see signs of people. Because they can't get right to the water. They've got somewhere they're opening and dumping it.
In the ditch bank.
I think there would be some indication, but to walk along there, it's pretty hard. But I know they're doing it because they don't want to put it in the garbage
Oh,
can.
yeah,
and
yeah, they got no room in their garbage cans, so
yeah,
they're,
so they want to dump it out there.
this is all the way from here to Jordan River.
It's just killing us, yeah.
That's all I had.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Thank
Okay,
you, Matt.
Dallas.
All right, Mr. Chairman, wanted to start with the collection system.
Sorry.
You okay? So the collection system, yeah, that's fine. We've talked a lot about collection system maintenance and rehab. I wanted to bring today this little map. This is highlighting the manholes that Don Calvert's been lining within the system. So to the top of the screen is north. You can see that's about where the treatment plant starts. Our strategy has just been to coat all the manholes with the high flows, with the most grit and settability. So we're targeting all the trunk lines. We're trying to get out and away from the plant across the 201 and then get some of those high capacity lines. So this is the best way I could visually represent the work that we've been doing in a shareable format. I hope that's helpful for the board. And then on the treatment side of the wastewater plant, a lot of just routine maintenance. Summertime, there's a lot of routine maintenance that we're doing. We've also, I wanted to bring to the board, I've got 3 months of data now that the Triton 2.0 upgrade kits have been installed on the aeration basins. I think I'd like to bring that to the board next month. If I brought it after just a single month, we wouldn't have anything to compare it to. Now we've got 3 months to compare it to. We can talk a little bit about our aeration strategy, discuss as a refresher kind of the phasing of how we're approaching that. And then I think that'd give you a good understanding of how far those dollars went that we spent on that equipment and what kind of increase in air we've gotten from those.
This is our second round of coating manholes, correct?
I think we do a few every year. It's probably our 5th or 6th year.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's been.
So with the map you have now, how many do we have coated versus how many are left?
We're probably plus 70 on the linings.
73?
73, that's just the ones that have been mapped. There's a few that are not part of the trunk lines that we've done. This portion of it is slowing down. We have a portion of our budget reserved each year for this. Next year, it won't be as substantial. We've really done good on reducing some of the I&I that we've seen. And I think now we start to target specific manholes rather than large sections of manholes. And then we focus more on manhole to manhole pipelinings and spot repairs with some of the budget.
So this should give us a lot more life on those manholes now, right?
Yeah.
That's,
and
go ahead.
I was just gonna mention, part of our, specifications or details and anything north of 2820 is lined, in new development, so to speak, and that's kind of also part of what they've been targeting, along with, the major trunk lines for them. So that's why a lot of this is, you can see that's, I'm doing it with my hand. There's 2820, basically. So they've done a lot of those major trunk lines north of there.
So you guys were gonna do a test on infiltration. Did we ever? I never heard any information on that infiltration.
Are you talking about flow monitoring?
Yeah,
Yeah, they did do some flow monitoring during the last master planning effort.
didn't we do it last year, and that identified a couple areas down through Harding and stuff where there was some sewer lines that were infiltrating, or not?
What'd you have on in the?
We might be thinking of 2 different projects, Mr. White. So we had some flow monitoring devices that we were trying to measure flow to decide which portions of the flows were coming from east and west sides of the district. And that was different from an I&I type of strategy.
Okay. But we did line a sewer pipe, quite a section down in that area, didn't we?
Yes.
Did we put a liner in it?
We did. We've done sections on 84. And that's part of, we've got some more teed up for this year. And once those lines are done, I can bring a similar map. And rather than manholes that have been coated, we'll show sections of sewer line that have been coated or repaired.
Okay. So in percentage wise, we've got about 73% completed now, or will be completed?
70 plus would be the manhole count, not a
Or is it
percentage.
73 units? So what does that represent in percentage?
Ooh, less than 25%, I'm sure.
But I don't think our goal is to
Do 'em all.
line the entire district manhole.
Right.
I mean,
Just the ones that are suspect?
yeah, it's just ones that they've found issues, and maybe, and north of 2820,
Sure.
you're probably 90%.
There are some districts that target lining every manhole. We're not that district at this point. We're taking a more pinpointed approach, finding the ones that have the degradation, finding the ones that, you know, are in parts of old downtown Magna where the top 3 feet is bricks rather than a concrete cone. And we're trying to target our maintenance and rehab in that way to get those up to a higher standard rather than just going through and coating every manhole.
So is it age then that's causing us to have to do these?
It's the age and the environmental conditions. The H2S gas wreaks havoc on that concrete.
Is that because it's on a main line where it's accumulating more, sees more gas?
Larger pipe diameters.
The slope of the pipe also can play into that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, in general, you see a big change in the slopes. It flattens out in that area that we're talking about. It's the flattening of the slopes.
That's where it accumulates
That's the
most.
biggest issue that we have.
When we put the sewer in that northeast quadrant, the state gives you guidelines for the minimum slope that's supposed to be. We could not get the sewer to work its way back to the sewer plant at Lake. So those sewers out there were put in with a exemption from the state to allow us to be a little bit flatter than the standard slope. So therefore it moves slower, and because it moves slower, the gas.
More gas.
So it was an intentional effort back then to put them in flatter. And so you're exactly right, but they move along and then all of a sudden, all of those pipes out there gets very, very flat. And it was the only way for us to, otherwise we would have had multiple lift stations all the way out there.
So that means we're getting better digestion, so it'll help Dallas at in the ditch.
It does, but that's the reason why it's very notable why it's all of a sudden happening in the area. That was the reason why. in that
Okay.
spot there.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Tom. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Leal, let's move over to your report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. We're still looking really good as far as compliance and our requirements. I don't know why that's highlighted. Anyway, sorry, something about the annual budget.
We do need to be thinking about that.
Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe that's that it's coming up. We'll set a tentative in October, so we start working on it in August, September. Thank you, Glenn.
Yep.
So it has to
So
be
that the
done
board-
by November?
Priorities for the board for next year. Now's the time we start talking about that, thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then the managers will be meeting and we'll get that direction and start putting a budget together.
It comes around every year really quickly.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Just to report, we've reported to the transparency website everything we need to report on time. The other two highlighted areas under annual employee training, they will be coming up. We'll get trained on those. We had our violence in the workplace training in June. And that's.
And we
about
got
it.
that
That's
class
coming
in November, right? For-
Yes.
Okay,
the UASD conference, and that's where the board members are trained.
so do we know where,
Training that
do we know where that's at this year?
Is
For
it
the
still
UASD,
Layton?
yeah, the UASD board's been having some discussions about where to hold it. I think it's gonna be in Layton, at least that's my
Okay.
preference,
Okay.
because I think that's.
And
They
when-
usually swap between Layton and Provo, but
Well, I haven't done it in Provo for a while. Last
it was
one.
a couple
So
years.
when in November?
It's usually the first week in November.
First week, okay.
I can find out more information on
Okay.
it, have that ready. But yeah, if all of you could make it, that would satisfy all the requirements for the training of the board,
Okay.
so that'd be great.
Great.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm gonna go ahead and continue into the financial statements.
Okay, go for it.
This is for the second quarter of 2024. The overall income at this point is 1.6 million. Last year at this point was 5.2 million. The biggest difference is the collection of our impact fees that we're getting. So, this time last year, we were getting Gateway to Little Valley, and that was a lot more money. And they've paid all their fees now, so. On to the revenue versus, revenue budget versus actual chart. The dark brown is the actual this year. The middle, kind of a orange, I guess, is the budget, and the yellow is last year at this time. So from the looks of the chart, our revenue is over budget, which is a good place to be. As far as the expenses, actual versus budget, the next chart, same, the dark brown is this year, year-to-date, the middle is budgeted, and the yellow is last year. And each of those categories, we are under budget. There are a few that are higher than last year at this point in time. So we're a little bit higher than last year, but we are still under budget. The third chart shows you the projects that we've spent money on. From January to June, we've spent 4.1 million. The biggest being, of course, the secondary water reuse pipe. That says pipeline. It's actually just the water reuse project. We spent 3.1 at the end of June by then. The next slide, I guess you're following with me, is the cash position that we're in. We have 15 million that's restricted and 23 that is unrestricted. Now keep in mind, our bigger projects and property that we're acquiring is still not out of that. And then the next slide is a decrease in payables, meaning that we've paid 3.4 million in our payables from January to June. So it just kind of shows where the money is going. Long-term debt, we've paid 1.9. Those are our debt payments. Accounts payable, of course, is 1.4. That's all of our vendors. And then following that, the rest of the pages is detail, line by line detail. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer, or you can come in and talk to me, or whoever, if you have questions.
You guys have any questions?
No?
I think it looks good.
But we're looking pretty good as far as budget. Budget-wise.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Andrew, let's have your HR report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Board. As you can see, we've been focusing a lot the last several months on safety. This is just an example of Raymond's crew taking note and making sure to use their trench safety. We recently got them some pocket pentrometers. The way these work is you take your spoil and you put it in to the spoil until you reach that line there, and then you get your reading off of this. So that read at 2.5, which would make this a class C, or a class A, sorry, and you wouldn't need any shoring because the soil is firm enough to not need it. And
So you just push it inside of the bank?
you take your spoil and ball it up.
Oh, okay.
This way it takes out the guesswork for the employees to have to say, I'm gonna register this as a class A, B, or C, and whatnot.
So if it's C, it's sand.
Basically, yes.
Okay.
We just got our new trench box delivered yesterday, put together for our bigger jobs, and then we use these boards and the hydraulics for smaller jobs.
What do you use for the sides? We used to use plywood.
This seems to be, what's it made of, Matt? You know?
seen it. I have no idea.
It's a hard plastic, it looks like.
Yeah, it's plywood at original source, but then it's coated and
Oh,
wrapped.
so it's like forming plywood.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that way it doesn't saturate or anything.
And it's like.
Yeah, they're pretty slick, cause you can just set them in and then you put the hydraulic over the side and it just flops down and you pump it up.
Yeah, it goes pretty good.
That's good.
And so we have several of those. We got a couple hydraulics presses, and we just and we've got some pumps, so they're in pretty good shape. The other thing to note, we're in the final planning stages of the Christmas party. I just want to get some feedback from the board on this. the Little America's got us a room, for December 13th that we can move forward on. It's a $5,000 food minimum. If we want to expand to a larger area, I believe it's another $1,500.
Were you crowded last?
It was a little tight,
It was a little tight.
so I would
They
suggest,
have one in the, in between.
it's hard, right?
The one we used the year before wasn't bad.
No, it wasn't. But it was almost a little.
Too big.
Just-
Yeah, but that's probably better than too small.
Yeah.
And so that's probably what I would suggest, and I'm just looking for some input from the board on where you'd like to move on that.
So, okay, for December 13th, what are we looking at for like employees? Like, is that gonna be a good date? I mean, I guess we don't know yet, right?
Yeah, it's so far out that it's hard to know, but if we can give people dates as early as August, usually people can plan, and I think winters are a little easier to plan around than summers.
Sure.
And things like that.
And we have a few more employees now than we did last year, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Good.
We did save on that. We decided not to do the summer
Yeah.
party.
had
We didn't have
so
enough
many conflicts.
participation
Enough.
on the summer party.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm coming from as the board. If we can't get the majority of people to participate in our summer and our Christmas party, myself, I would just soon cancel it all. If we're not gonna get a majority, because, you know, that's what it's all about
I
is,
think historically, the Christmas party's been well attended.
right,
I just think summers are so hard for a lot of
well, it is.
people to,
Well, and this year was so hot too, people
Yeah.
didn't wanna do it.
I agree.
We should have a good turnout. You had a good turnout last year, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, we had a really good
It was
turnout.
great.
Last year was real good.
And the party's well planned, very well done, a lot of fun. So if anybody left not having fun, it's their own fault.
For sure.
Yep.
So if the board's okay with moving forward with telling them that we'll take the room, we'll start looking.
I'm
towards that.
totally
If we-
fine, I'm totally fine with that.
Are you okay with the one, is this the same size you had last year?
I think this is the same size we had last year, that was a little tight, so if we had.
I wouldn't mind moving up to a little bit bigger room, because, you know, if you have more room, I don't know.
You just don't want the year before, which was a way big room.
Yeah.
Well, that's when you have dancing.
Oh, I see. Did you dance?
So I'm okay with, if you guys are okay to move up to a bigger room, I'm
If you need to move to a bigger room where you got more employees,
Let's do it.
not so crowded, so.
Well, we appreciate your support on doing things like this and,
Helps.
understand the
Investment in
investment
morale.
in the morale, so appreciate that. That's it for me. unless
So I got a
someone has
question
any
really fast. So
questions.
on this December 13th,
Okay.
is that the only time they had that room available?
I believe so.
Okay. Why don't we put out some fillers right now to see if it's too early, so people can kind of see where we're at for commitment?
Yeah. Okay.
You guys okay with that?
Yeah.
yep.
Okay.
They do want us to move quickly. They do have other people looking for that room, so I'll move as quick as I can with getting numbers and.
Was there
Reach out to-
anywhere else that you guys wanted to really look at?
We
or-
looked at that other one down the road that you had mentioned. What was it called? But they didn't call back.
The grind,
No.
Is it the new one?
Yeah.
Right off from where the Salt Palace
Yeah.
is? I forgot what that's called.
But anyways, they didn't reach back out.
Okay.
But as we've talked to people, a lot of people like this venue.
'Cause they can
It's easy for
stay
them to
overnight.
Stay overnight.
Okay.
And,
Safe.
yeah.
Okay, awesome.
But I'll reach out to people today prior to.
Just kind of let them just see what they're, you know,
Yeah.
because they
think
get
that'd
their
be
family Christmas parties going, and this way we can kind of plan around, because I'd like to have the
And 13th
majority.
is what day of
The 13th, I believe it's.
Friday?
It's a Friday.
Okay.
Hey, that's
Okay,
it for
that's all
me.
you have. Okay, let's go over to item H for the water and sewer.
Can I make a
Yes, go,
suggestion?
yes.
Mr. Chairman? We've got Yafafai here.
Let's let them go ahead.
Is it all right if we move to that item?
Yeah,
Are
let's
you
let
guys
them-
Okay with that?
Let's move them, then that way they don't have to sit and go through all this with us.
Well, thank you so much for having us. I'll just sit up here.
Yeah.
My name's Megan. I'm here with Yamify. I apologize. I know some of my colleagues have met with staff before and chatted a little bit. They're actually in Chicago this morning. They're getting an award from the Alliance for Water Efficiency for some of the work that we've done with communication about secondary metering, actually. So I'm here. The plan is just to give a brief overview about what Yamify is, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have as well. So if we just go to the next slide. So essentially our purpose at Yamify is to try and make utility staff easier by making communication easier. We bring in data from the water provider using your billing software and allow you to connect that to your residential contacts so that you can send out messaging really easy. And that can be data-powered messaging, it can just be messaging created by your staff, and that's kind of where we go. We go to the next slide. We have a variety of channels of communication that's available, from web notices to text messages, emails, and then also just the standard postcards and letters. What makes it really powerful about having all of these different channels at your exposure is that you probably don't have a perfect contact database for your residents, but there are strategic times to use each of these different channels. And with Yamify, we can bring it all together so you can text someone if you have their textable phone number. An email, and if not, last resort, let's send them a postcard straight to their mailbox, and that's where we come into play. Go to the next slide. So there's really two different kinds of messaging that we focus on. One is geographic-based messaging. So if you click to the next slide, you can see an example of this would be a construction notice. Maybe it's only impacting a very small area of your service area, and you want to send out targeted messages to those residents. That's something that Yamify allows you to do. Another example would be a service disruption. Let only the people know whose service is out, what's happening, and keep them updated using text or emails. A boil order is another example where you can have really specific information sent to a targeted group of residents. Now, the second type of messaging that Yamify does that also makes jobs a little bit easier for staff is situational-based messaging. So if you click, here's some examples of what I mean by that. This is where we're pulling in data from your system or from your different programs that you have, and sending messages based on that data. An example would be a pass-through notice. I know right now I think the process that I read here is some letters and then maybe some door hangers, or when you work it down to who's got water shut off. With Yamify, it's really simple to send out maybe a text message with a link to where someone can make an online bill payment.
Okay.
Let's go to the next slide. So I kind of touched on this before. This is some example data that we have from another Utah agency that we recently onboarded. Honestly, I'll tell you the truth, they have really good contact data, but you can see they have 80% of their textable phone numbers for their residents, which is great. That's one of the highest that we've seen. But they add on email, suddenly they can reach 86% of their residents. You add in landline numbers that they have, they're up to 99%, which means just with all of those channels, not sending any postcards, not sending any letters, they have a reach of 99.3% of their residents. Now, I say this is really good, but every agency we've worked with has been surprised at actually how good their own contact data is. And that's one of the cool things about Yamify is that when we come on board with an agency, we pull your contact data into our platform. It does a lot of verification of phone numbers, so we can tell you exactly how many of your phone numbers are textable, how many of your emails are just like not good emails, and it gives you a starting point. And it comes with reports so that then you can look at where your holes are, and we help agencies start to fill those gaps. Just off example, we were working with Bountiful Irrigation. We went and met with them, and I was so optimistic about the contact data I've seen with agencies. And then I learned, oh, they're only funded through property tax, and they have actually zero contact information for anyone.
Wow.
No numbers, no emails, no nothing. And so we said, okay, that's all right. And we sent out a postcard with a QR code that let people update contact information, and had just such a surprising response of thousands of messages or form submissions coming back in. And I think that taught me two things. One, residents are very interested in receiving the type of communication that the utility is going to send. Two, it's possible to start from nothing. So, next slide.
We need to get this before the
One
budget
kind of communication,
so we can get
I guess you would say
everybody.
philosophy that we hold at Yamify is proactive and better. So there's typically two different times when a utility is going to communicate with a resident, right? It's either planned, you know something's upcoming, or it's unplanned, you've got a main line break and suddenly you have people out of water. But in both cases, if we can move towards the proactive side, where the utility is either messaging before something happens or messaging before a resident reaches out to them, that's where you tend to find more understanding residents, and it's a more positive, confidence-building experience. Where agencies tend to see the reactive, upset, loss of trust with residents is when they're just being reactive to the messages coming back from residents. Really interesting stat that came out recently, oh, you're totally fine, was that in almost every situation, residents who've experienced service disruptions are less satisfied with their utility, with one exception. And that's when residents are proactively notified about a service disruption, their satisfaction was actually higher than residents who never experienced the disruption at all, which is kind of interesting. So I know Magna Water has done, from what I've heard with the letters and the door hangers, the staff really does a really good job of trying to communicate, but obviously there's limitations in the ways that we communicate with residents. Here's just some stats to consider. If you have Facebook, about 5.2% of your followers on your Facebook page are going to see any post that you make. This, I would imagine 36% is actually a little bit high now of how many people are tuning into the news if you're trying to put out oil order notice on the news. And only about half the people are even going to look at the bill stuffers we send in our bills. And this actually is decreasing too because of the number of auto pay customers that we're starting to see, which is a plus, but also makes it difficult to communicate. Next slide. So as we're looking at each of these different channels of communication, obviously there's pros and cons of each of them. One of the most effective ways to make sure a message gets out is the door hanger, which I know Magna Water uses a lot, but you can see there's challenges with that because it takes a lot of staff time. It's costly to deliver, and then what do you do when you have something happen in your project and there's a delay? Do you go back out and door hang everyone and say, actually, just kidding, this is gonna happen tomorrow? And there's lots of challenges that we face that way. Next slide. So one of the benefits of being able to add in more digital forms of communication is that ability to have more instantaneous updates going out to residents. Being able to shoot out a text message about a delay, or being able to send an email rather than waiting for a postcard to go out. Yelpify, our goal isn't to change or take away from what you're already doing. We're just trying to provide more tools so that you can use the right communication channel for the situation that you're currently facing. Next slide. One of our little, I guess you would call it campaigns that we do is Ditch the Door Hanger. Not that there's anything wrong with door hangers, but just that there can be more effective ways to communicate with residents. We have a lot of agencies that use Yelpify specifically for things like shut-off or delinquent notices. And I would say one of the most surprising things that we saw from this is we have one agency that they just said how many thank yous they got back the first time they used Yelpify for a delinquent notice. And that's kind of strange because no one likes hanging a door hanger, no one likes getting a door hanger, but for some reason getting a text that says, hey, just wanted to let you know that your payment is past due and water shows up on this date, you can make a payment here, feels like a nice reminder to people sometimes.
Right.
And in fact, a lot of times they were surprised at how many people just had something like, oh, I'm sorry, my credit card expired and I didn't realize. So it makes it more of a positive experience with residents. Next slide. This is just some of the messages we've gotten back from communities about also the reduction of people.
So the cities use this too.
Yeah, cities who provide utility
Awesome.
service. Yeah. The next slide. This is another watershed, I guess. So they also found just the cost savings they've discovered through more digital communication, rather than sending out the letters, the postage, all of that. A text is obviously just less costly. Next slide.
Politics.
Other use cases we kind of talked about is the planned and unplanned service disruptions. With that
I'm not sure
geographic
that's
messaging,
allowed.
basically in Yelpify, what you can do is circle an area on a map, or you can draw a custom polygon around an area, and that's how you can target messages going directly to those people. Very helpful for something like pipeline rate. Next slide. Emergency notifications, something like water shortages, water quality issues, same thing. You can select, there's 3 different ways to send a broadcast in Yelpify. One's like I mentioned, from a map circling an area. One is from a list of contacts or tags that you predetermine. So for example, if you had certain like zones that you predetermined that you knew would be impacted by a certain water line, you could message just that group. We could have a tag just for our board members so that you knew we could send a message directly to you. And then the final way is just a list of account numbers, so that would make sense for a delinquent payment. Next slide. Capital projects we talked about, next communication was simple, we can go to the next slide. This is just an example of how one agency is using us for a project. This is Highland City, I believe. So they're really using Yaqify to help with their secondary meter installs. They have a process where they'll send out a message to let people know, hey, someone's gonna be installing a meter, here's what you can expect. They have a message that goes out after the meter installed to kind of keep people updated. But they also have, actually I take back, this isn't Highland, this is Heber City. So Heber City, they have this project page just about with all of their information about the project. And then that Yaqify, the blue widget there, is where people can go and actually just communicate or subscribe to notices about that project. All of these tools, you can use all of them, you don't have to use all of them, it's really customizable based on the use cases for each agency. Next slide. Now, water conservation is something that we chatted a little bit with staff about, only because this is an area where there's a lot of grant funding currently. And I know Magna Water does a lot of things in conservation already, but with Yaqify, some of the cool things we can do is pulling in your water use data, we can start sending more targeted, personalized messages to residents, so that if we're promoting, say, a Utah Water Savers program, then we can only send messages to people who it's actually applicable to. A toilet rebate only to those who qualify, or maybe we could look at sending out irrigation controller to your highest water users, so you're actually helping to achieve those conservation results that you're expecting.
They get offended with that.
It depends on how you word it. Let me tell you, actually, something that's been fun to watch is we have some agencies, and what they do is they call it the choose your own adventure approach. So they'll send out just a very generic text that says, here's your water use statement for the month, how many gallons you use. Would you like to see how you, and it just starts asking them questions. So it becomes this interactive thing where they say, would you like to see how you compare to a neighbor? And if they say yes, it shows
That
them.
really pisses them off.
If they say no, they don't have to see it.
They say,
That's-
I don't
that's
care
the
about
choose
my
your own.
neighbor.
Yeah.
The only time this is beneficial is when we have somebody on a high use.
Yes.
They don't know they have a water leak. That is real important.
Yes.
We've
But
had that a lot
They
too.
don't like to be compared to their neighbor, because Utah Power and Light is doing that now, Rocky Mountain Power. It is very offensive, because there is not two houses that have the same electrical,
Sure.
the same usage.
Sure.
So I'm just saying.
Yeah, I hate that too, but.
Yeah, no, for sure. So you don't have to do that. Absolutely not. The agencies that are giving them the choice to see it or not see it is sometimes interesting, because sometimes the curiosity gets the better of people. One thing that also comes with Yaqify is a lot of data analytics. This can be powerful in a lot of different ways. So one, if you send out a message, it's nice to be able to see exactly who's received that message, and all of that's tracked within Yaqify. Two, we have custom dashboards that we can use to facilitate insights and actions based on what this agency wants to see. So for example, lead serve is a great idea. I believe you guys have an AMI portal, if I'm right, customer web portal?
We're getting one.
You're getting one, okay.
We're working towards it.
So one thing that we've done with Yaqify is kind of call ourselves a wraparound of that, where with the portal, it's great. There's tons of really good information that residents can see. The barrier is they have to log in. So someone who doesn't care about the water use, or think they have an issue, doesn't know they're a high water user, they're the ones who are never going to look at that. With Yaqify, we do things like send out a proactive message first, nudge them, say, hey, it looks like you might have a water leak, get them to go to the portal, things like that. So it works really well. Next slide. So I just wanted to kind of close on this, where this is something that we've chatted about with staff. We've identified maybe there's a couple of grant opportunities that could be available for Magna Water District. One example is the state currently has a transparent water billing grant. So the purpose of this grant is how can we make water use more transparent and available for its residents. And so Yaqify has worked with agencies on that grant program. The other possibility is potentially a Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District Member Agency grant. So just wanted to throw this out here as an option. Not to sound overconfident, but we've had a 100% success rate at getting the transparent water billing grant with the agencies we've worked on that with in Utah.
I really like this communication. I think it's great.
I will say that I think what impressed me the most was we are doing email and text, with through the website. And that's been a great step forward, I think, for us. But the challenge we have is we don't know the quality of the data that we have, the quality of the text or the quality of the emails. And it doesn't have the capabilities of knowing how effective it is, and then these other tools that they're providing in addition. One of the things that jumps out to me the most is we have to, with that power that we have to send out information, it gets limited because we have to decide, okay, if we're gonna send it out, we have to send it out to everybody or nobody.
Right.
This we can target.
Right.
And so it makes it much more of a valuable tool because we can circle this area, say this is where the issue is. It affects our inspectors. If Rob knows how many people are gonna be shut down, he can come in, tell Trevor can draw the area, get a notice out. We've had examples on 3100 South with that storm drain project. We had to go back twice to the neighbors and say, because the contractor doing the work took longer,
Too slow.
and so we had to renotice it twice.
Yeah, and you know what's sad? We shouldn't have had to do that.
Right.
Right.
But ultimately it
Right.
affects the customers
Right,
because
no.
the water's off.
So as far as the water company side, it is absolutely phenomenal. But I think there's still a lot of people that don't have internet
Yeah. And the,
contact.
right, and that's where
I don't
this comes in. I think where we're limited, we can only email or text or Facebook or use the website, where we'll know who has that
Feedback.
capability
Yeah.
and who doesn't. And if we send out this first approach and we're only hitting 50% of people, we'll move to the next level, send out a text. If that only hits another 20 and we still feel like we're short of how many people we need to target, we can do the phone call option
There's phone call, and then we also have postcards.
and then postcard option that they
Okay.
they have a really slick way to
We don't
print
even have to
postcards.
it
Right.
works through that process by itself, right?
That's
So
pretty
it's
cool.
not we just say, we need to send this message, and it figures out how to get it to
I
everybody.
like
That's
that.
pretty
It
cool.
respects the preferences of residents too, so if someone, even if they have a textable phone number and they say, I don't want text, we can do that in Amplify where it will never text them unless you in an emergency override it. So it would say, this person doesn't want text, I'm gonna just skip that, go to email, and we can manage those preferences.
Do we have like 9,000 users? That's what we have?
Yeah,
Over.
Yeah, overnight.
About? So what is this targeted for? I mean, how big can this go?
I mean,
big as-
it's very big. We've got, let's see, I'm trying to think of our biggest clients, maybe St. George City or Highland City also uses us. So it very rarely would we see an agency message their entire service area at one time. There might be a situation where that happens, but I would say most often use cases are the more targeted communication where you're messaging a neighborhood or a block or a list of delinquent accounts.
Oh, pretty cool.
So our thought was we wanted to just do an informational, get the board's feeling, but we didn't have anything for formal approval today.
So will you bring it back next month for approval?
We can if that's the. if the
Okay,
board's
I'm in.
Leanne already sold us on it. She gave a good explanation. I thought really good. But this is really more in-depth. It's a lot more information.
I think the decision that staff has to make is whether we recommend going for the more robust programs up front, which would be help offset with some grant money, or whether we go with a more basic approach, which wouldn't be targeted towards anything beyond their basic features. And then I think staff, they've given us some references. We haven't called them yet. We're gonna call those references and see
get a
how much
feel
time
what
it
they're
takes
doing.
for their staff. So
To
we'll
get
be
up
able to
to
report
speed.
that back next time to the board.
Is it considered a very user-friendly system?
I would say so.
Well, of course you would.
I know. It's easy to think, but listen,
To me and Danny,
They can get right
Hey, when you say user-friendly, look at us. What are we using? We're using
Paper.
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 And you know what, they'll send you a letter every time a message goes out.
That sounds good.
None of us have laptops here, us three.
And that's just great.
And just one of the things we'll need to do is just go through our procurement policy.
Yes.
And make sure that, you know, any type of procurement we do with Yopify
Okay.
complies with that. I don't know where the price is, so it may be a sole source, it might be a small purchase.
Okay.
If it's large enough, it might be a competitive bid, and that just depends on.
Yeah, we'll go through
tiered.
Okay.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming out. Okay, so let's go to our water and sewer.
Okay, I'll take that. Thanks, Chair and Board. So our first one there is Can-Am. That is approximately 7415 west in the South Running Road, on 201. Let's pull up this area map here. So there's some storage units out there along the South Frontage Road, 201. And there's a home next to those and a long narrow parcel. And the proposed development is to come in,
Rusty. Oh, yes, Rusty.
proposed development is to come in and not modify the home up front. It wouldn't be a home, it would be a business, so they'd modify the interior, they'd keep the same water and sewer service. They would install a dry line across that frontage of secondary. And then behind this, in that longer section, they would pave it for truck storage.
Is this Rusty Anderson's
Oh,
property?
this is Rusty Anderson,
Yeah.
the trucker. That's with the storage unit, right?
Yeah, the storage unit.
So is it gonna be changed over from the storage
The
unit?
storage unit would stay. This is the property next to it.
Next to it.
Because you own the ground next to it,
Yeah,
right?
so as far as water and sewer, it's a really minimal impact. The water use will remain relatively the same, but it will be from a residential to a commercial. We'll get the dry line across the front. My recommendation is to approve water and sewer for that development.
So where is the sewer? That's not on a septic tank? That's,
No, there is lateral, there is main line.
Comes right off
and
that
so it goes
frontage
straight
road.
to the west, to the main line?
Our main line's in the
Oh.
frontage road.
Right.
Oh, okay,
And so there's a lateral already to that residence and that.
And it's already
building is
connected?
Staying, yes.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a proposal to approve the Can-Am Logics facility located at 7415 West, SR 201, South Frontage Road.
I'll second that.
Been motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next up is a quick quack car wash. New one.
Another one, huh?
We had a one on 5600 a while ago. This one is on 84 near the apartments.
Wow, that's cool.
I'll pull over there on the GIS.
Oh, it
You
is?
can have a little better
On 56?
aerial view.
Yeah, it's really good.
So, east of those, the apartment complex on 84, there are several parcels here. When the apartments were built, there were services stubbed into each of those properties, water, sewer, and secondary. This one here south of Washiki is already built. It's a big white building, you may have seen it. This is just north of that, 8426, is where they're planning on the quick quack car wash.
What is that listed right below there? Yeah,
This one?
no, straight up, on that lane right there, what's that lane? Down, right there.
Wahakashi,
Milwaukee Lane.
Wahaki.
It's the main entrance into the apartment buildings.
Okay.
Across the street from your house.
There's a retail storefront here right now that's just finishing up, and this would be north of that. Like I said, the water is there. It's a 2-inch service connection. There's secondary water for the lot, and there's sewer and a lateral plumbed in, ready for this development, so.
No shiny shell, huh?
My recommendation is to approve water and sewer service.
Okay. Thank you, Trevor. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve Quick Quack Car Wash, sewer and water at 8426 West Waukesha Lane.
I'll second that.
Been motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next up is an oil, it's called Oil Changers. It is located at 8146 West, 3500 South. This is next to
El
our
Habanero.
favorite restaurant. It is this right here, 8146 longer, narrower parcel. Again, this one has water and sewer service already to the residential. It would be switched over to commercial. The recommendation is for them to provide the water services needed. They could potentially use the existing services out there. The other oil change that's come through recently was a Valvoline one, and they really only have one restroom in there, and then, you know, maybe
How many will this one have?
a little bit similar.
Just one?
Yeah. So minimal water use, minimal sewer, and an oil change.
I noticed they're not even using the back portion of the property.
They are not. Yeah, about the, similar to this back portion will just remain as a open, I think, detention.
Put
I don't know the
landscape or
details
something.
to that yet. We just
So-
have a site plan.
If they put that in there, do they have to put any oil sumps or anything like that, oil catch or like a restaurant?
They don't, none of their like interior floor space discharges to the sewer. It's all kept internal. So there's not an oil water separator. The sewer is tied directly just to the,
Do they have a deep enough sewer to do their pit, to get rid of the water in their pit?
yeah, for the restrooms and stuff, yes.
Okay.
It's property.
Okay, thanks, Trevor.
So do we have to approve this today?
No?
It's your decision.
Why?
I just wanted to see what planning and zoning's gonna do on this,
That's what I kinda wondered too.
We are discussing.
cause it's gonna go to planning and zoning, it's gonna go to the council.
Yeah,
You wanna table it and talk about the other item first?
Yeah, so I motion, cause that's what we're talking about today, so
Sure,
let's motion to table it.
yeah, okay. It really needs to be approved by the,
So we need to
Planning and
make
zoning
a
first.
motion to table, so.
okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to table the oil changers located at 8146 West, 3500 South.
I'll second that.
Been motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item I on the project award and agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of meetings ago, you indicated that you felt like we needed more microphones on this table. So I reached out to, Web Integrations. There's only currently spots for 2 editions, and that would be 3,626. The reason the third one would be so much more is because they have to add some more hardware and lines to it, so.
So I have a question for you. So with us adding the more speakers, Trevor, you was talking about something today earlier. Is there anything else that we need to add for in here for this boardroom for?
What they're cover, a TV would take power and an HDMI is all.
Okay.
Which that port has
Okay.
HDMI, and I believe it has power kind of near your bottom of your chair.
Okay.
Okay.
So probably not.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure, because if we're doing this, I want to just make sure we.
So you want another.
So what I want to do is I want to set our table up like Jordan Valley has, is I want to have this table move back, and then I want to monitor right in front so the board and us can see what's in it.
Instead of.
Yes,
So
and
it'd
then
be
this
one-
one can actually swivel to these people so they're not gawking their head.
How about a remote microphone? Do we need one?
We have
a
one.
podium,
We have one.
but what do we have now? Are we gonna add anything for a,
These microphones would be identical to this.
Right.
oh, okay,
There'd just be basically that side, 2 more I think 2 more would cover you, right?
2 more would?
I think so. If that one moved over to Matt, then really,
So if you're bringing one over to Andrew, I think if we're gonna do them, let's give everybody a microphone.
we could do that, then that'd be 3.
So that's my
What about a remote
recommendation.
one? Just like when her presentation she gives, she could have
We
one.
have one.
Oh, I
We
thought
have
we
one,
did.
and it really,
We could put one, I mean, the other option would be to put one on this table.
Okay, well, whatever you think, I just
We
think,
haven't had a,
when a visitor comes, they could be talking into it, it would be a little better.
we've had it and people don't use it.
But can you hear that with your
What if we
record,
handed
with your
it to 'em?
recording, can you
Sometimes
hear?
yes, sometimes no.
Sometimes you can hear it with your recorder. I think we need to get it so we can hear the recording.
So we do have a microphone that we can
Yeah,
hand
the
out?
portable one, yeah,
Okay,
we do have one.
No, I
We
see.
don't need that table, all we need is that mic.
Yeah,
So we want to do 3 then?
Yes, that's my
Okay.
recommendation.
So,
okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of additional microphones for the boardroom table. 3 units for $58.53 from Web Integration and Sales.
Second.
In motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, Trevor?
Okay, thanks Chair and Board. This is the task order for the EDR water treatment plant finish and feed tank redundancy plan. This is for AE2S. They would look at the EDR plant and our finish and feed tanks primarily, as well as how those are controlled. Because right now we don't have a way of taking either of those offline without drastically affecting our water,
Oh, well.
production and providing it into our system. So we've gone through with AE2S over this scope and what we envision coming out of this, and very confident that they'll be able to provide the service for us, come up with a good plan and a path forward for us. I don't know if you've had any questions as you've looked through there. Prior to, even getting to this point, we asked 3 different consultants to submit on qualifications, and they had a great plan, and that's where we came to selecting them.
Okay, so you all right with that? Danny,
Yeah,
you all right? with
you all
that?
right with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the AE2S task order for the EDR water treatment plant finish and feed tank redundancy plan in the amount of $117,170.
I'll second that.
It's been motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next one, Trevor.
This one is Bowen Collins. So we're reaching the year 5 now on our master plan. We've had a lot of things change, a lot of development over the past few years. And kind of that 5-year window, we want to start looking at our master plan, getting that updated, getting our rates reevaluated, getting our impact fees, our project plans, the need for any future funding, things like that. And so Bowen Collins did a great job with our previous plan. It's helped us create roadmap, and we've asked them to put this scope together to update that and move us into kind of the next 5-year window. And so we've met with them, gone through each task, looked at what we did last year, some of the things we want to look at this year, and that's what we have here. This scope of services is pretty robust, and I think it will give us another great plan for the future.
This will make us current then, once we get this task order done?
We will, it'll essentially give us another
For the next 5
Another
years.
6
5
years,
years.
5-6 years.
How long will it take us to accomplish this?
So the goal is to work through it this year and into next year, kind of into the May timeframe, May, June, and we would have
For
that
next
wrapped
year?
up.
May, June?
And then that would give us enough time to kind of work through anything with this and the rates and discuss things
Yeah.
and figure out how we want to end next
I
year.
like the thought of looking at those what do we, impact fees, to see if we're charging enough and stuff for those.
Yeah.
Great, thanks, Trevor. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Bowen and Collins. What? Oh, you put your arm over, I thought you.
No.
Bowen and Collins and Associates Task Order for Master Plan Update in the amount of $159,904.
I'll second that.
Been motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Dallas.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, going back to the collection system maintenance, in a board meeting earlier this spring, the board had approved a project for Don Calvert and a separate project for Twindy to do some construction and rehabilitation in our pipelines. We're under budget on both of those projects. Through that analyzation, we found some manhole sections that we'd like to repair. So we'd like to take some of that budget that we've been under and put it towards this project. Twindy has partnered with CNL to help us establish the repairs that need to be done here. It's over 1,000 linear feet, 3 different projects. The addresses are listed there. They're pretty high priority. And we'd like to get your approval to move forward on that.
Okay, thank you, Dallas. Danny, you okay with that?
Yes, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the manhole-to-manhole slip line repair project with CNL Water Solutions in the amount of $128,087.
Second that.
Been motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Trevor.
All right, so next up is A2S task order for SCADA upgrades. If you remember, a couple months ago, we had the SCADA needs assessment brought to you that identified all of our offsite facilities and the upgrades to the SCADA system there. That was very positive, and at that time you had asked us to get with them and get a task order put together for, this is the design mainly for that, and the bidding. And so we worked back and forth with them to create this scope, and wanted to present it, and we feel comfortable and confident in A2S providing us a great plan, and we would move into construction next year with it. Approved.
We're spending money left and right, so let's go for it.
Well, I thought it was gonna be quite a bit more money than
The
this.
total
Yeah.
estimate for everything, including construction and installation, was 600, if I remember
Yeah.
right. And so this is the design and bidding portion
Right.
of that.
Okay, just to get it all identified then,
Yeah,
specifically.
get it designed out,
We're
bid
spending money,
it.
but we're getting things done.
Kind of the planned schedule would be to design it, bid it towards the end of the year so that construction happens in 25.
Okay,
And that'd be a budget item separate.
great. Thank you, Trevor. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the AE2S task order for SCADA upgrades to off-site facilities in the amount of $167,692.
I'll second that.
Been motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Trevor again.
Hey, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I will just defend Trevor. He wasn't here last month, so we pushed off a few of these to this month.
Okay.
So that's why there's more than normal.
2 minutes.
All right, next one is Stantec. They are currently working on our wastewater treatment plant, master planning. And they've been doing a great job moving along. And what this is for is because we've since we did the original task order, we've upgraded those blowers with that Triton 2.0 upgrade, and that's changed some of the information and the way the ditch is reacting to the biology and stuff. And we had originally done some modeling using the existing aeration the way it was before the upgrade, and we had all of that completed, And then there was a task to just look briefly at some of the air, but not more in depth. Since that, and some of the other work that they've done, we've identified the need to look at kind of future air for the treatment plant and possibly some intermittent treatment upgrades between now and like some bigger future stuff, 20 years down the road. And that's what this amendment covers. Redo the modeling with the current air, with those upgrades, look at future air improvements and some other things as well.
So is this incorporating task, that one right there, task 5, where it's 60 days, so this is gonna be like a 90-day time frame for task 5 and task 4? Because it's gonna be amending that,
Yeah.
so we're gonna be about, or is it 120 days? Will they be simultaneously?
Yeah, they'll be working on them.
I mean, so it'll go 120 days?
Yeah, they're just saying it would take about 60 for 5 and,
Another 60 for 4?
yeah, 30 for 5 and 60 for 4.
Okay. So,
But
Mr.
they'll work at them simultaneously, yes.
They will?
Yeah, so it's not pushing it out 90 to 100 days or whatever.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve Santec amended task order to WRF Treatment Master Plan in the amount of $31,742.
I'll second that.
Been motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Trevor.
Next one is secondary water line project. So we're trying to get designs on secondary water each year. Bowen & Collins has been helping us with some of our other ones. Past ones were, the secondary water through 7600 that tied us, for the reuse project. That was a big trunk line that we needed. They've worked on design on 7200. And this year we've identified some sections on 3100 South for secondary water, and that's what this one is referring to. I can show you on the map. We have, by development, put in some sections over here by CW Farms. There's a section of 16-inch along here. Past district project, we put in some over here on 3100, but there's a gap there. This project will close that gap in.
So these will fill the gaps in, Trevor?
Yeah, that's the intention.
Yeah, 1,500 feet here, 1,200 feet here,
Yep.
2,700 feet. Where's the longest one, Trevor?
So we've got here to here, and then from CW Farms over to, is that Lifestyle Lane? I'm not sure which one of those is the longest.
Is it closer to 72 or is it closer to 8,000?
So it's basically from 84, heading east, all the way over to Lifestyle, which is
Okay.
roughly 78, 7,900.
So will that get pretty much all of 3100 now?
That will get us all the way from the, current high school heading east, just past.
So will that get us, that'll get us past 38,000, right? Ooh, maybe we can get a new road there.
Will that connect into CW Farms dry lines now?
CW Farms actually has live secondary.
Coming up
because-
from 2720?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but this will link it across there. And part of this is, it will help with reuse when we're bringing a lot of that water from, north, south, and to our storage reservoir. So this is all kind of lining up to build a trunk line that will help support all of that water.
Pretty big trunk line, 16 inch.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Trevor.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Bowen & Collins and Associates Design and Bidding task order for 3100 South Secondary Water Line Project in the amount of $67,360.
I'll second that.
Been motion second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, Trevor.
Last but not least is we've got a quote or a price from Landmark, the same company that we worked with for the basement remodel and the lobby office. And this is specifically to take down the shelves that are in Clint's office on the south side, south end. Take down those shelves, patch that up, and repaint that wall.
Oh.
We can discuss wall colors if we want to, but
Excuse me.
What do we want to change? Do we want to paint a wall in this conference room?
Yeah, we wanted to change that
Oh,
one.
that's right.
yeah.
Okay, well, you'll have to get that
Okay,
submitted.
okay.
Thank you, Trevor. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Landmark companies for shelf removal and paint at the general manager's office in the amount of $1,495.
Second that.
Been motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on. Okay, we've already done one.
Yep.
So Rocky Mountain, Trevor, the Rocky Mountain Power Demand Response Program.
All right, so Rocky Mountain Power has what they call demand response program, and essentially, if I tell you in my own terms, basically they are trying to hold off on doing large capacity projects. And in their mind, if they can pay people to take power off the grid, then they don't need to, one, build these large capacity projects or buy power from someone else. And when they buy power from someone else, even if they need only 10%, they have to buy a block. And if they only need 10% of that, they're still paying for the entire block, and that's millions of dollars. And so that's where they've come up with this program where they will pay us for taking our power off the grid. How that would work for us, it would be our wastewater treatment plant and our water treatment plant, and we would use our generators to power our facilities during those times. And the downtimes that they have done so far and looked at are under a half an hour. They ping the customer and say, hey, we're gonna have an outage in 15 minutes, or we have an issue in 15 minutes and we're asking you to go off grid. So then we can then respond to that, switch to our generators, and then we're off the grid, and then we come back on when they tell us, okay, everything's good, come back on. And for that time period, they're paying
Bothers
us.
me too.
That scares me.
There are some challenges and things to definitely think about in that
Do our
scenario.
transfer switches stuff, are they all automatic where we can do that?
We are all manual for those type of operations. So like, for instance, at the EDR plant, if they go from grid power to generator power, it shuts down the plant, and they've got to then reboot.
Oh, I don't like that.
And at the wastewater treatment plant, they haven't done it intentionally. They've had power issues where then it automatically switches.
Correct.
But they don't have like manual control to tell it switch. You know, it's just something
It
that happens in
transfers.
those
When
emergencies.
the power goes down, it automatically transfers and starts the generator, but
And
the
it does
EDR
that.
plant doesn't have that.
It switches over automatically, but they have to manually start the treatment, right?
You have to manually start the generator.
No, it'll switch over. If
And
we
you gotta
lose
go out
power,
and
the
do all the
generator starts,
manual.
but it kills everything,
And they have to go
all
out
the
and
water
manually.
treatment plant. We have to
Yeah.
manually go start everything
You only
back
got
up.
2 people down there.
Can it be made automatic?
The
We need to
reason
look
they
at
didn't, we got it set up to where we could actually turn off the plant from our SCADA or whatever remotely, but to start everything back up, you had to adjust some gauges and everything else, all your differential gauges, and that's kind of why they didn't make it so it could start remotely. We can stop it, turn off the EDR plant remotely, but we can't restart it. Because you want to be in there and make sure it's
You have to
running.
be there in person to
In
make sure it
person.
starts up properly.
Yeah.
Oh.
If you had to
So what
adjust
happens when they
anything.
do it and they're off?
Well, that's my question. So when are they proposing? During the middle of the day is?
It can be anytime.
Yeah.
The thing that's important though is it's not mandatory that
if you sign up for the program, it is not mandatory to,
Well, then we don't want to do
you know,
that.
react to their calls.
I wouldn't do it then.
You can do it, you can even set it up so you're only notified during business hours. There's a lot of flexibility there. And the only thing that happens, if you don't respond, then it just lowers your percentage of response, which means it lowers the amount of money that you get. And that's what happens. So in this, if we kind of scroll through it all, if we were to be 100%, I thought I had it in here. If it's not in here, I can pull it up somewhere else. But $300,000 a year is what they would estimate paying us if we responded to each response.
But stop and figure that out. What would it cost us manpower wise to have to go start everything back up manually? I mean, you gotta look at the labor cost versus the cost savings.
Yeah,
I think they need to come back, give us an estimate. We're a service company, and anytime we interrupt that service based on this kind of a situation, you're just asking for trouble. Because we're servicing customers, so it becomes a secondary problem. And they call it any time. We've only
The
got
only
two
way,
people
I
down
think
each-
the only way we would agree to it would be that we're not impacting our customers.
yeah.
No, we're not what?
We're not impacting our customers, that's the only way.
But it comes with a cost for us too, though, because
There's definitely costs on call out times. The EDR, I don't know that that's something we could get around. The being able to switch the generators over automatically or, by SCADA or whatever the controls, those programs are out there. I mean, like one example, I talked with the church, has their major office buildings and they have all their air conditioners connected to this and they have a system where they can control each unit individually and turn them on and off to try to
Air
maximize.
conditioning is a lot different.
It is, it is.
Hell, the wastewater treatment plant, that's a lot of equipment. That's way different than an air conditioner.
Yeah, I know.
You can put a time delay on an air conditioner.
Yeah. The capabilities are there
that's why I didn't
to be
sign up
able
for my air
to
conditioner, to have them shut it off when they want.
do it on and off.
Maybe we need to look at AES and AE2 and see if we need to incorporate that with our upgrade on our SCADA system. Maybe we need to cover that a little better.
Is that a Utah Department?
I mean, now we're upgrading it, we really ought to look at that.
Yeah, I've been kind of back and forth with them, trying to collect all the information I can. They ran this scenario, this is, with basically us responding to each one, the amount of power that we would be saving them, and that's, $300,000 a year that we would get an incentive from them.
But that doesn't say how many times a week that this could take place.
This is, somewhere in the paperwork.
Annual hours, it had it right there, right?
7 minutes.
8,000.
3,760.
So for a question, let's go down to the EDR plant and we've got a major problem down there and this goes down, then you have to go out there. It's like, oof, it's kind of scary.
Well, anyway, how many times are they saying on this? I mean, they throw you that big number out and it looks all attractive, but let's say if this is 2,000 times during the year, then let's say it's 3 times a week, I think
That's
it's a
way
pain
too
in the
much.
butt, yeah.
Well, if you sign up for it and don't respond, you don't have to respond, you don't.
The penalty is that you don't get the money. And it's
But
not
like Jeff just said, I don't know how true that money is though, time you turn around, they say 300,000, but you gotta put costs for our labor costs built in it to do all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, if we automated everything, that would be a cost. There is call out time, that's a cost.
I think what you ought to do, Trevor, is maybe you ought to look at that automation wise and minimize our manpower to see if we do that.
And part of this is to bring it to your attention, have this great discussion and see if it's something you want us to move forward with some of these deeper analysis. How would we handle it? What is the cost difference? All of those things.
Well, I'd even kind of thinking about when you have to start something up, a TV monitor, and you could do it remotely. I don't know if that's possible, but just trying to minimize
Yeah.
people being on site, have to push the start button. I'm always against that if you can do it.
Yeah, and we can only, like, they have an online program where you sign up for your times and days. And we could do Monday through Thursday, 7 to 5. And if those are the only ones we respond to. If it's outside that window, we don't respond.
And they shut down at 5 and we go home at 5:30. So.
Leon,
We
what,
wouldn't shut them down, I'm saying.
No, I know.
We
I'm
wouldn't
just-
get pinged by them and
Leon,
asked to go
how much
operate.
do we spend yearly with Rocky Mountain Power, just for the heck of it?
Just a rough estimate.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So 300,000 is a little
Half.
tiny point, half. We send 6 million a year.
No,
600.
650,000.
Oh, 650,000, that would be half?
Close.
Huh.
What's 325?
You start throwing labor on it for 2,000 times.
Yeah.
How many times, how many times a year were they guesstimating?
They said their averages are roughly, or the times they would ask is about a half an hour. So if you take the amount of hours and you say, sorry,
But that's total kilowatt hours, right? That's,
It's not.
or is it?
participation kilowatts.
Yeah, I can guarantee you, I'm gonna see what's gonna happen here. They're gonna call you and,
This is the amount of hours. Yeah. So it's assuming we're participating all year long.
yeah.
The amount of incidents, I believe, is in here, they might have more.
And Trevor, I don't mean to be putting you on the spot.
No, it's all good.
I'm just saying, sometimes people come up with this idea, but the practical part is for the guys at the DER plant or the wastewater treatment plant, they're gonna call and say, hey, we need you to go online. And it takes them a half an hour to get down there. And, oh, sorry, you didn't get the discount because you didn't make it.
Well, it goes by a percentage of the time, so you could be technically, like, you could be late for it, but if you participated 80%, now you're getting 80% of that for that event. I wish I had the number of estimated events last year.
Well, I wouldn't
actual
wanna,
events
I
last
wouldn't
year.
wanna say, let's try it. I
The
think,
program's limited to 65 hours annually,
Yeah, thank you.
and
So
at
it
30
could run
minute
from a
intervals.
minimum of 5 minutes to a maximum of 4 hours.
Yeah.
And when I was talking with them, their average is around 30.
So,
So
In-
64 hours?
65 hours.
65 hours, over 5 minute intervals, so you can. No, seriously,
One thing I'll add is Trevor's approached me about this idea. You know, they reach out to him, they say this is something that we offer. We try to evaluate it. Do we have to put all of our plant on it? Can it be non-critical infrastructure? Is there a benefit? You know, then we add up the manpowers, then we add up the fuel cost to run all of our generators. I don't think this is something he's looking for a hard and fast on. I think it's just, this is something that was put in front of us. We're trying to evaluate it and just wanted to get some board input.
the one big number, labor to respond. Number 2, the wear and tear on the generator. Because after a certain amount of hours on that generator, you've gotta rebuild it. That's a big number.
Yeah,
That isn't cheap.
yeah. And we do, we haven't evaluated this very much, but we do run our generators, just the maintenance runs.
How long? Half an hour?
Half an hour, 45 minutes, weekly.
And
Weekly.
Well,
say
EDR
when
one
these
runs
incidents
weekly.
happen
Call
during the
this
week,
is a,
that's the maintenance.
The
run.
maintenance
there you
run.
go, there you go.
So-
Okay, all I'm saying is, I honestly think, that in my opinion, I think we need to look at it, the automation side of it, and see how prepared we are to do this.
Yeah,
We wanna make it as easy for the men as we can.
Look at
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
So-
great feedback, because that's what we're looking for.
yeah.
all that
I
equipment.
think
out there
if,
to start and stuff.
AE2 can look at this and say, do we need to incorporate a little more in that upgrade? Then maybe that would be good, and it would help these guys a little better.
Especially down that end.
We know it needs an upgrade, so we just as well
We're like,
incorporate that.
we're like this.
Yeah.
But we'll do some more research and investigate
Well,
some of these.
I don't mean to make you do more, but I think on automation.
I like the idea of it. I'm just not sure how it works and if it's worth it. And that's, you know,
If it was
I
air
think worth
conditioners,
checking
if
out.
it was air conditioners, I would be all for it, but
I know Leal likes the 300,000.
I was against it until Trevor convinced me a little more. I was not liking the idea, but I think it's, if we don't have any downside other than, you know, some labor, somewhere.
I wanna see what the labor cost is on it for us and that, cause that comes with the cost, so that ain't gonna be a true
Biggest thing is we're not
$300,000.
getting into a contract that's saying we have to do it.
No, that's why I said I
That's
was
the
fine
biggest
with
thing for
that.
me.
Give you, all right, we need it off now,
And
and we don't know when it's gonna be back on.
Yeah.
You know, be back on
They
at
give
7
you
o'clock
7
tonight.
minutes advance warning.
They give you an advance warning
So you're gonna be off for
and
half
I
an
think
hour or?
they tell you what their
it'd
estimated.
be 4 hours, yeah. So
Half
I
hour
look
goes
at-
to 4 hours.
My number said 780 incidences it could be a year.
Couple times a day.
So I can get, I've seen and talked with them and I can get, you know, a lot of information. I can get last year's, how many incidents over the last few years, give us a little better idea. We can do the cost analysis of man time. We can look at equipment costs and then see how that pencils and maybe that makes sense.
Yeah, bump it up and say, no, we need an extra 100,000 because we've got to get, so we can do
We
that.
can even drop our participation
Does
down.
that sound crazy? Like just saying, sorry, you got to give us 400,000.
They offer more money if they have the control.
I don't know.
No, then
We
we
don't
can't
wanna
do
do
that.
that. We didn't even go to, as soon as they said that, I was like, no,
Yeah.
we don't.
Oh,
need to
no,
talk.
no, no.
Okay,
Okay, thank you for that discussion.
yes, thank you very much.
Okay, let's move on to number 4, Clint. This is the big, this,
No, Nathan.
Nathan.
Nathan's
Oh,
one.
sorry, Nathan, I was trying to bypass you, but.
No, this is a really simple thing. I just wanted to, the standard motion language that we use, I've recommended some minor tweaks under item K to just more accurately reflect what actually happens when we move into closed. Because what we're actually doing is we're recessing for a little bit where everyone goes to the bathroom and gets some food, and then the closed meeting takes place after when everyone goes back into Clint's office. Because technically, if we say immediately move into closed and then we go and get food,
Oh.
technically that would be a closed meeting that we should record. So I just wanted to
Oh,
tweak
okay.
the language to more accurately reflect
Oh, I
what
see.
actually
So
happened.
you've already made the change?
Yep. mhm.
Okay.
So I just wanted to explain what that is and
Yeah,
just, you know, just a brief reminder with recesses, and I've never seen anybody do anything inappropriate. We just can't.
that's
Or
awesome.
we're getting the food and go to the bathroom, we can't talk about the stuff that we're voting on or would come before.
Okay,
That's
great.
it.
thank you. Okay, now we can go to number 4.
Okay, let's move on to 4. Clint?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that what we wanted to discuss with the board from their feedback, I know there's a good involvement in the MSD and the city process that our board is fortunate we have some insight into that. And we've had some challenges with projects coming in that want to do a zoning change, to change the way that the property can be used. And the problem for us is they are asking for us to give water and sewer availability to that project before the zoning change has been made.
So it'd only be a proposal?
So it's really challenging because it completely changes how some of these would go from maybe 4 or 5 units, just single families, to 16 units. And it changes our recommendation to the board on what would need to be done. So we could go through one way how it is, or how they want to do it, spend a bunch of time, recommend, get a board approval, but then it goes to the council and they might deny it. And it feels like in some instances, we're being used as leverage by the developer to put pressure on the city, the MSD planning staff. So what we're asking is board thoughts on how you'd like to address that. I think it was good that the board's been thinking about it and just wanted to formalize any thoughts so that we could then move forward with how we would approach the MSD or the city. Any ideas that the board had on that?
I think we need to go, in my own opinion, I think we need to go back to MSD, and I think they need to give this design to the planning and zoning so they can evaluate it more effectively, because they wouldn't even know what the developer's idea is. We're doing it because we need to do it to evaluate it for sewer and water. But I don't think planning and zoning is getting that much information. So if we didn't get it, I don't know if planning and zoning get it, so.
Well, it's just like that one today with the oil change location.
Right.
They haven't even seen it yet.
They haven't even seen it. So I think they, planning and zoning needs to get that, MSD needs to tell them to give that design to planning and zoning so they can evaluate it effectively.
Then they bring it to the city and then,
Yeah, then we can get it and go from there, and then we know it's
And they
gone
bring it
through
down.
the.
I think we need to make clarification then, because there's two issues I hear in that. One would address the zoning change. We could say, hey, we don't want to see anything till the zoning's been changed.
right.
That's one thing. But what I'm hearing you say is, in addition to that, you don't want us to even see it before the planning approves the development. And I think the challenge that the planning is gonna come back to us is, well, we can't approve the development until water and sewer, we have a letter on water and sewer.
But we want to see, am I right? We want to see what the development's going to be to see if we can provide the water and sewer.
Right, but I'm talking about planning and zoning doesn't even get an idea. If it wasn't for us
Okay.
having all that detail, Todd's group wouldn't even know what they're gonna put on the, so they're trying to get a zone change. Why are they trying to get a zone change? They need to describe that, why they need it, so they need a plan to see what they're gonna put on there. We request it because we're gonna put sewer and water, but they need to treat planning, zoning, and the council the same way as they do us. That's all I'm saying is, if we make them wait and go through the planning and zoning, they still need to give that information to planning and zoning and the council so they can effectively make that zone change.
I agree. I think that would be very helpful. The only thing is on those projects that don't need a zoning change, I guess, are you talking about that as well? Because
Only
just the
zone
zoning
changes.
Okay, that's what I
Only
want to
zone
clarify.
changes.
So
'Cause I
Todd,
think
did you have a
that's-
comment?
That makes sense.
I was just gonna say, on zoning changes, though, they don't bring us the project that they're doing, they just say, well, we just need the zoning change, this is kind of the idea, but we don't see the full project on the zoning change. It's not till either they need a conditional use or a subdivision or something like that before we see.
So
That's
that,
even more of a reason not to.
yeah, so what?
Yeah, that's even
what-
more.
So why are they coming to us to get approval before they've even completed that step? That's our question.
And
When they come to us, they have to be showing us how many units.
Yeah.
And what the layout is.
Well, you seen that over down here on Dora Way.
Yeah.
Is there something in the rules?
so, no, I was just, so normally the way that this works for a permitted use, and a permitted use is, hey, I want to build a multifamily apartment building in a zone that allows for that. They don't need a zoning change or conditional use. And we tried to get rid of as many conditional uses as possible because they're just a fight. So most of what you should be seeing are largely going to be permitted uses. But the way it would work with a permitted use is they have to put together plans that will go to the staff, and then the staff will get those, and then they'll go around to all, like the fire department, they'll go to all the utility providers and say, okay, can you serve this? But with the zoning change, as the gentleman in the room mentioned, a lot of times the developers haven't put together the plans because they don't want to spend a lot of time and money doing that until they know that they can get the zoning change. And that's why it seems a little odd to me that they're asking you to provide a will serve approval on a project that hasn't been approved for a zoning change. So I think it makes sense from your point of view to hold off on making any sort of approvals for a project until it's gotten the zoning approval and until they've, at that point, submitted the conditional use plan or the permitted use plan, because that's the normal process that we go through. And there is a process that MSD staff follows, and it's the same process that any city or planning department would follow. And just to be clear, when we're talking about the MSD staff, we're talking about Magna City staff. I mean, they work for the city, and so this is something that you could work through with David and Paul and Mick, to help the staff coordinate. Because we had some issues too in other jurisdictions where developers were getting ahead of the planning staff and, trying to do things to get leverage to pressure decisions.
I think our confusion is coming because we're hearing from the developers that the planning and zoning won't even talk to them until they won't have.
You have to submit a water and sewer availability letter for them to
Well,
even look at.
And so that's the point. That's the discussion. I say have that with David and with Magna City, because these are, at the end of the day, the MSD staff is implementing Magna City's policies. Yeah.
Well, I kind of think it needs all this detail they give Trevor for their planning and zoning, which justifies a zone change. That's what I don't understand.
Well, and there is a difference, for instance, between saying, hey, we are going to provide water for this project. And I represent other districts where we've done, this isn't a will serve, but yeah, do we have water available for this project if they comply with all our rules and regulations? Yes, but they still have to go through that process, and they'd still have to, this isn't a will serve letter itself, it's just saying, yes, they're in our service area, and if they comply with our rules, they would be entitled to water. I think that's probably what the planning commission wants, because they don't want to approve a zone change for something that's going to be a dry lot.
But it's a lot different if they've got 16 units versus 6 units.
Yeah, but they're different things. There's a difference from saying, this project is located in Salt Lake City versus, no, this is a project that's located within Magna Water's service area. And theoretically, if they comply with our rules and regulations, they could be entitled to water and sewer service, in a future time when we have actual plans.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Well,
The challenge is the problem is it's being used to make decisions by the developer whether they're gonna purchase the ground.
yeah.
And so they want us to commit to being able to serve 16 units, because that's the only way they're gonna close on the property.
And that's
not
our job.
So I think that is the biggest challenge, because it changes how we're gonna allow them to connect to the system.
Yeah.
Right, so that's the challenge.
But the point I'm trying to make is, if the planning commission, and I get why the planning commission and the city would want and understand, is if it's just a general statement of, yeah, they're in our service area and they're eligible for service if they comply with our rules and regulations, that's something that happens all the time, as opposed to, yeah, we will serve it.
Then that's different.
Yeah, so that letter
Than
would-
we've ever done. We'd have to change.
We'd have to create a new letter or document that states those.
Yeah. But like I said, that's probably a discussion you could have with Magna City to figure out.
I'm not opposed to that. I just think
I think
if you guys, if the board thinks that's a good solution.
Yeah, as long as they meet all the requirements, and yeah.
And I have a couple templates I've done on other projects where, basically it's, they're doing the same thing.
We would just need them to know, we have not analyzed any of what you're proposing.
Yeah, and I have some disclaimers to, it basically says, they're in our service area, they would be eligible for water and sewer service if they comply with our rules and regulations, including but not limited to, you don't have this issue, but paying impact fees, dedicating, water, paying applicable fees, us doing an analysis, and us getting actual plans to review and approve.
We've made no assumption of how, the nature of how and where those connections will be. The cost, could be dramatically different depending on the type of we can put in some disclaimers that,
Yeah.
But that's what I think what usually with the zoning, what they want to know is they're like, okay, who is the water service provider for this project? That's really the fundamental question they're trying to get to. Or who's the power provider? They don't want to approve a project and have it be in some unserviceable island,
Right.
and then have that developer come back and make it the city's problem. And David, I don't mean to speak for you, but that's.
Yeah, I like that fact that we'll provide a letter saying they're in our service area, we'll provide as long as they meet our condition.
But this is not a will serve letter. We need to approve actual plans, and we can't do that until
they would need to change the language to not require a will serve letter.
Yeah.
18 years I dealt with this issue in Summit County. Paper water and wet water are two different things. And telling the MSD staff, I was hoping to hear that the Magna Water folks would say, until you can verify how much wet water you need, we're not gonna give you that letter. Because that process can be really challenging when it comes to the planning commission, because they don't necessarily get told what that end product's gonna look like.
Right.
So, there's some moving parts here, and we'll certainly work with, the MSD staff, because I don't think every municipality in the MSD gets water from Magna Water.
No, they each have their own district.
Yeah.
Immigration has its own district, White City has its district, Copperton and Kern, each have their own district. So it's the same situation.
Education to explain to the trustees, who give that, ability to the staff to do planning and development as it relates to Magna, different from Kearns.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's worth having a discussion before we make any decisions here with David to make sure that, because David, I mean, if you want us to just take a position, we're not going to provide any letter, we could do that too. Yeah, I mean, but you'd have to change your policy, because right now that sort of thing can't move forward. And I don't work on Magna, so just to be clear.
It's a personal choice, but I probably have to make sure the council understood that I don't speak for the council.
No, but you have a council member here. But my point is I think this is a discussion that, I think there's a way to resolve this issue. It might require some changes in how we do things and how the city does things, but the reality is we're dealing with a changing landscape. You're seeing more zoning changes, you're seeing more development. You know, we probably can't keep doing things the same way that we have, just given the development pressure that you have.
Well, back when I did my development, that was in 1975, I just got a letter from Magna Water said, you're in our service area, so I don't know when that changed because I didn't have to show, they just said, we will provide, we have sewer and water available for your development, and that's all my letter said.
I wonder if it's when the health department got involved and started requiring those.
I don't know.
The restrictions have gotten much more strict over the years as water and land have become more scarce. What David was referring to are some unique requirements in Summit County. I assume you are, David, the concurrency requirements. The concurrency requirements that Summit County has, where all the water districts and water companies have to report to the Summit County Department of Health of how much water they have and connections, and there's a very detailed process they go through to do will serve letters.
Getting that concurrency statute, we're challenged almost for 12 straight years by developers who said, well, we think you're being unreasonable. And it took, going to the courts, going to the Court of Appeals, get verification that that's not an unreasonable request. Developers don't see it that same way.
I like the concurrency. I mean, it's a little bit more work for the districts, but the difference is they're in a much more water scarce situation than you are. There is not a whole lot of water in Summit County and a lot of money to develop. But that's things have changed a lot since the 1970s because there's just less water to go around and there's more of a risk to issuing that type of a letter now. I don't think anybody here would be comfortable with the district just issuing a blank check letter like that without going through the processes we've established now.
Well, it's only a single-family dwelling, and it wasn't a zone change.
Yeah.
Todd, do you have any comment? You okay? Okay.
So, would you like us to meet, first step, just set up a meeting with MSD
Yeah,
and city staff?
that will work.
And
Whatever David needs,
talk
yeah.
about
Yeah, whatever David and
Nate,
Nathan thinks.
Yeah, I mean, the issue I have is I represent the MSD on land use. I don't do Magna City.
Disclose it, right?
Yeah, so I'm disclosing that for the record. But Paul is your city attorney, we can sit down if we need to and work on that.
Okay.
But I don't, this isn't a hard thing. I've dealt with it in other situations. I think the real question is what makes the most sense for the planning department and what makes the most sense for you guys, so we're not continually going back.
I just don't want us to keep going through all this work and,
Yeah.
because Trevor goes through a lot of work doing this and.
Well, and I'd rather just have Trevor get the final plans. I mean, that's the way it works is if it's a permitted use. They submit a permitted plans, the staff reviews it, they make sure it complies with the zoning laws, they run it around to the fire department, all the other utility providers,
Yeah.
and that's what you review. The challenge with the zoning thing is it's conceptual at that standpoint.
Okay. Sounds good.
Do we need to make a motion on this?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay, so our next board meeting will be September 12th at 10 o'clock. Anybody have a problem with that date?
No, it's a Friday,
Okay,
it's after Labor Day.
okay. Seeing none, does someone want to make a motion to close the open?
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, take a brief recess and immediately following meet in closed meeting to discuss the character, professional competence, physical or mental health of an individual, and the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, including any form of water right or water shares pursuant to Utah Code 52-4-204 through 205.
I'll second that.
In motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ready? I'll make a motion to close the closed meeting and reopen the public board meeting.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We didn't take any action in closed meeting, so any other business to come before this board?
Nope.
Nathan, you, anybody? Okay, let's make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.